Hi everyone, welcome back to the newest episode of Real Talk. Today we're going to talk about real conversation, real estate, real life, and hopefully some real fun. Welcome to Matthew Petriello, who's our preferred attorney at KPG, and also Jamie Martin. Welcome back.
Hi everybody.
Yes, so here we are. So we have a lot going on in the industry this week, and I'm kind of glad that we were 2 days delayed in filming because now we can talk about what's happening with NAR and the lawsuit for $418 million that they settled with on Friday. And I did a video yesterday talking about it to hopefully start to educate the consumers, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper today with the two of you. So Matthew, what are your thoughts, Mr. Attorney?
So first and foremost, thank you for having me. So happy to be here with the both of you. Yes, we had some industry news this week for sure. I have to say that we're just having this conversation, just 2 business days, 3
Correct.
business days.
Lots of dust to settle.
After the news has hit. So a lot of dust to settle is correct. At this stage, I had gotten so many calls on Friday about it. And I was telling people like, I need like time and a way to process. I was getting the information. I was doing the reading, involuntarily thinking of this as I was falling asleep at night. And there's a lot of questions that have popped up. But upfront thoughts, there's going to be some changes made to the MLS and how you guys advertise.
Yes.
There's going to be some changes to agreements between buyers and their agents.
Correct.
And some restrictions that have been put on it as well.
Yeah. So the 2 major changes, as we discussed, are we will not be able to talk about, publish, or actually have anywhere in the MLS systems regarding the commission to a buyer's agent. And also, we will not be able to take out buyers without a predetermined listing agreement signed.
Correct.
To determine the commission that will be paid by somebody, which we're going to talk about.
A buyer's agreement.
I'm sorry. Yeah, buyer's agreement. Yes. Right. So
same thing. Listing agreements always,
correct. Oh, did I say listing agreement?
You did. That's
sorry.
So listing agreements were always in place, right? So a seller always signed an agreement before we list their house.
Correct.
So now it's essentially kind of the same thing, but for a buyer.
Yes. So there's agreements all around.
Absolutely. And this is a lot of other areas of the country did this more frequently than New Jersey did. Although I will say NAJAR, again, the State Realtor Association, has had a buyer agency agreement for as long as I can remember.
But
really used. You don't see it that
No one
much.
used it.
Right. Nobody used it. So it's been there. They have it. That disclosure is always important. I do see that as the actual most practical and fundamental change that will be here. There'll be that negotiation between buyers and agents as to the negotiated fee. Where it goes from there, though, I think is a bigger question.
Yeah. So one thing I said in the video is we have always in New Jersey disclosed the buyer's commission, how much they're getting paid.
Yes.
The full listing commission. And also how much we're getting paid as a listing agent. It's in the documents from the minute that we list someone's home.
Right.
So we've always disclosed that in New Jersey, but a lot of states haven't. And that's where really the problem has come in.
Right. It was different throughout. Go ahead.
Yes.
Exactly. So essentially, the big change is not really based on New Jersey. It's based on other areas in the country where, they weren't like us. We signed the paperwork with the seller, and the seller knows right from the beginning what the total commission is and then exactly how that's going to be split between the 2 sides, like Karen said, versus before other states were just a total commission amount and it wasn't disclosed. Okay, this is how it's going to be split up between the parties that are involved in the transaction.
So typical commission in our area right now is 5%. So we told our sellers we pay out 2.5 to the other side in writing. Some states, if they were getting 6%, 5%, they could keep 3 or 4 and pay out 1 or 2 and never tell the seller. So the sellers did not know what was happening with the commission, and that's what created all the problems.
And another thing also is that what I think was one of the purposes, we're going to see the effects of the settlement, but one of the purposes of the settlement was to make that buyer's commission not set at all.
Right.
Correct.
That is one of the intentions where that can be, just like the seller negotiates their side, now the buyer is going to negotiate their side. If that will have any kind of practical effect on prices or actual commissions, I'm really not sure it's going to have the effect that they had intended, in that you are going to have a situation now. Okay, so it's not clearly delineated on the MLS what the buyer's commission is. However, now every buyer is going to have a set commission with that realtor. And now where is that money going to come from? Because now it is a set fixed number, right? So either traditionally the seller's going to pay it, or now the buyer's going to have to pay it, or it's going to come from another source. And you were talking before about
seller concession,
right, financing it.
So it'll be part of a buyer's closing costs. So Jamie, why don't you explain really what a seller's concession is?
So essentially what happens is the buyer sends the contract for a higher price that includes those extra costs that they need to finance. This has been something that's been in place and used for other type of closing costs in the past, but this is something we think we may see now to cover the cost of the commissions if the buyer side does have to pay for it, because not everyone has, that extra cash to come out of pocket.
Correct.
So essentially they can tag it into their mortgage costs and finance that cost so they don't have to come out of pocket with that money.
And I've been doing this forever. Seller concessions were huge back in the day. They've kind of gone away a little bit because of the market conditions, but I think you're going to see a lot of that.
Well, let me say this too, right? Seller's concessions, you're right. In this strong seller's market, seller's concessions as an upfront negotiated item where the buyer's going to finance other closing costs have gone away mostly because of the strength of the market on the sales side. However, you see seller's concessions used all the time when a file gets to me for things like inspections.
Yeah.
Now, there's just so many questions. Now, isn't that going to hamper a buyer who doesn't have as much cash available? Now, if they have to use their seller's concession to pay for their buyer's agent, isn't that going to reduce the amount of money that's going to be available? Because seller's concessions are capped and they're not unlimited. Isn't that going to reduce the amount of money available to that buyer to make the repairs on the home that they're going to make?
Yeah, well, Jamie,
that's been my
her number one
concern with the whole thing, because obviously, first time buyers or people like that do have a lower down payment and maybe not as much cash of hand, that's somebody that maybe already needed to get a seller's concession to finance some of those closing costs. And now you're going to have to finance potentially the commission depending on how the structure is set up with that house.
Yeah. So a couple points that we talked about was, how is this I call it the food chain, right? The first time buyers are the ones that feed the market, because the first time buyer, and then that person buys a bigger home, upgrade, and then you have the downsize. So it's just this constant food train of real estate. So how's that going to be affected? The other thing, Jamie and I were on my coaching session today trying to figure this all out. By the way, we don't really know much because there's not a lot of information yet, because once again, the dust is still in the air. But sellers, my coach thinks that a huge percentage of sellers are going to pay the commission. And we talked about that because what are you going to do? Minimize your buyers coming into the house?
Right. So, okay, it can't be advertised on the MLS, right? If they're going to want to actively market their home to the most people as possible, therefore maximizing their potential of getting the highest purchase price, right? They are going to want to incentivize agents that have a pool of buyers. If they are offering a lower split, or the seller is not offering any buyer's commission at all, I understand that it's not going to be able to be advertised on the MLS, but the reality of the deal is still the reality of the deal. So now, instead of being efficiently disclosed on the MLS, it's going to be a phone call. And just real quickly, I have a buyer who has a 3% buyer's agreement. My buyer is only interested in seeing houses in which that 3% is covered by the seller. And if your seller doesn't cover the traditional 3%, my buyer must pay this. And therefore, we're not going to come see this house, reducing the pool, reducing the price.
They may not be able to, like we were just talking about. Yeah. So 100%, it will potentially reduce the pool of buyers. And don't you want your house to get as much exposure as possible and as much potential buyers through that door? You never know which one's going to be the one to put in that best offer.
And how could it also not disproportionately affect the lowest income among us? The people who have the 3% conventional LMI loan, or a 3.5% FHA, who that on-hand cash is what controls their deal. And now they have a new closing cost transferred from a seller to a buyer. It is going to reduce the pool of houses. It's going to reduce their competitiveness.
Yeah. I do think that disclosure is always key, obviously. And, my video said yesterday, we have to navigate all this, figure it out in a professional and ethical way. But I think there's a lot to navigate. How is it going to be managed by the MLS systems? Are we going to get a phone call for every 50 showings? Everyone wants to know what the commission is when the offers come in. Are they really now fair across the board offers? Because now the offers are based on who's paying the commission.
Right.
It's not really an equal playing field, in my opinion.
And it benefits the people with more money.
Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
I don't know. I hate to say that. I think that there was a better way to handle it, even though it is definitely about disclosure and making sure everyone gets equal opportunity. Maybe it's not keeping everybody equal in their opportunity, but we have till July 15th to figure this all out.
Right. And again, the dust is certainly, in the time of this conversation, the dust is certainly settling. And there are so many questions. And this is what every time I keep thinking about it, there's more questions. Another one that that was brought up to me by many other realtors is they're saying that this is going to reduce costs. How isn't there a flip side argument that this is going to increase the price of homes, in that the comps in the area are still going to support X number of dollars? Now, if this buyer needs to finance the buyer's agent commission, they're going to have to still come in at that purchase price
Correct.
that's supported by the comps,
Right.
plus add whatever number more on top of that as a seller's
Correct.
concession. That's how a seller's concession works. You increase the price and borrow back. So now, isn't it going to have an inflationary effect on prices as opposed to a reduction of those?
Yeah. And Jamie, we always talk about with our agents that the value of your home has nothing to do with commission. It's not like we walk into a house and say, okay, your house is worth $700,000. We're going to add the commission on.
Right.
That's not the way it works. Right. Your value
Is your value.
Is your value. It's not
Yep.
based on commission.
Solely
Now,
based on market.
correct. And I also think that sometimes the consumer does not realize how much it costs to market a home and the expenses behind running the business to make sure that you're getting the most exposure possible.
Well, and on the flip side, sellers were paying typically that buyer's commission before. Now it's kind of up in the air, but also the amount that goes into representing the buyer too.
Yeah.
Right? You want that person that's going to represent their buyer well and bring in the best offers for you. And right now, as a seller, they are in a seller's market, they are going to get buyer's agents that are going to bring in really fantastic offers and coach their clients and help them understand what has to be done to win in this market. And
Yeah.
that means bringing in great offers.
I do want to move on to something fun in a few minutes. I also think it's going to become more valuable. I've always said, who you work with matters. You're going to need a buyer's agent that knows what the heck's going on. And thank
100%.
God we are surrounded by the people we are surrounded by to make sure that we are going to be on point. And I think if you know anything about us, Matt, as you do, that's my pledge. It's going to be a wild ride for 3 months, but it's going to I think it's going to make the industry better in a way.
And I think that the power of the knowledge of what has happened and what is about to happen and keeping up with it, again, after the dust settles, and you'll know more, we'll all know more in the coming months. I think that knowledge will endear and make your service to your clients even at another level than it is already.
Absolutely. And I think it will make it more transparent in conversations with our sellers so they understand how valuable a buyer's agent is, which is also key.
And that's exactly was my point before, is maybe they don't always understand the value that the buyer's agent is also bringing to them.
Correct. Yeah. Well, because I always say to my sellers, it's price, terms, and also the buyer's agent. If you have a nightmare buyer's agent, you might as well just I'm sorry, if you're a nightmare, you're a pain and I don't want you to sell my listing.
And a lot of times the buyer's agent is the person that's recommending the buyer's attorney,
Correct.
the buyer's lender,
It's a whole
the
team.
buyer's home inspector, right? We're trying to provide the best team for our clients. And what that means is providing a smoother transaction for the seller.
Correct. Yes. So we will figure it out. So you mentioned that your phone was blowing up on Friday with other realtors.
Sure.
My phone's been blowing up all weekend, which is great, which I'm really blessed with because of my masterminds, the group of agents I've surrounded myself with throughout the country, trying to navigate this, figure this out. But I don't know. It's made me want to have a glass of wine or two.
I can see that. Or more.
Someone
maybe.
said about all the agents, their hair's on fire, right? Running around trying to figure it out. So with that being said, so you're married.
I am.
Yes. And you have a lovely partner.
I do.
And you guys love going out for dinner and all that. So what's your favorite date night right now?
Well, Carlos and I are pretty basic. We like to go out to dinner a lot. You know, we love to eat and we like to go out and enjoy a cocktail. We typically like to try new places.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of our big things. We really like BYOB spots because we love to drink wine. So we like to bring a bottle and just try out the food of somewhere.
You have a list.
I have a whole list in my phone of places that I want to try. And then I actually have a list of like my top favorite places. So that way, if I'm like, where should we go? I can just look at my list and come up with an idea. Our most recent was actually Villa Verde in Wayne. I've never been there.
Yeah.
We loved it. And, you know, the funny thing now about our date nights is like last week, we went to the gym first and we went home and got ready. And then we went out for like a late night dinner after.
Yeah. So one of my policies is Sunday brunch. You can't go to Sunday brunch unless you exercise. Because, you know, they always say.
And you better do it before.
Brunch is just a reason to have a cocktail maybe and eat on a Sunday.
Or several glasses of mimosa.
Mimosas, yes.
At 11:30 in the morning.
11:30 in the morning, exactly. So you have to walk a lot or exercise before. So Matt, what do you and Melissa love to do? Well, you have two little kids.
We have two little kids, which is a thing. But even before them, and there will be a life after them too. After them in the day to day. But I was always, and this me and Melissa always matched good. I was always like an adventure guy. Like I always liked like adventurous dates. Although I'm a total foodie and I like working my way around the area too. But I always like to like do things. Like and my wife was super athletic. I've known her since first grade.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
We grew up together. She always played soccer. She fully scholarshiped softball and soccer in college. Always athletic. So whether it's like hikes or mountains or bike rides or skiing, or I like the winter sports, skiing or ice skating, or with the kids with the sports, or Melissa with soccer or softball. Like I always like to, it winds up if we have the time to do something really fun, it winds up being like a little bit of an adventure. That's what I always like to do. My wife loves to be outside.
That's love something
we're trying out now, actually. Like we're checking out new walking paths now that the weather's getting a little nicer.
Did you see the trend on social media about sober activities? I forget what it's actually called.
Actually.
Yeah. I saw someone post the other day and it was a bunch of women, and they were outside in nature and they were like sober girls activity or something like that. And I thought that's so awesome because clearly there's a lot of people that do not drink. But if you go out for dinner, brunch, we just talked about, there's so many things that are so much fun to do.
Right.
I have to be honest. One of my favorite dates is this tells you how boring I actually can be. Run errands.
Oh, that's not a date.
No, run errands, just 2 errands, and then go out for dinner and be home by 8:30. I love that.
I mean,
it's a beautiful night for Melissa.
Right?
Beautiful night.
Right?
Me and Carlos do that. I wouldn't that's not our date night though. Like every Sunday, typically that's our day, right? Because we have one day off together.
Yeah.
That's it. Out of the whole week, we have one day off together. So Sunday's our day. We like to sleep in. We'll get up. We'll typically go run some errands, like maybe go grocery shopping or something. We go to the gym every Sunday. And then usually we try and come home at a reasonable time. And then we'll actually get takeout that day so that I don't cook that night.
I like doing that on a Saturday. Leave the house at 4:30, run a few errands, get the Bluebird special.
Melissa is certainly with you on the 8:30 bedtime. No problem.
Yeah,
with a smile on her face.
Oh, yeah. 9:30
and Melissa loves to wake up early, and so much of our stuff happens. And I had to Marriage is about, partnership is about compromise.
Yes.
Trying to come to the middle of what time we're waking up and moving around. But she always loves the morning. But now the kids too. My whole house is awake at 100% at 6:15 in the morning.
Do you guys have a specific date night?
We need to do better with such things.
Okay,
And my
so-
kids are young, right? 5 and 7. So
I
we're
don't
like
care.
just getting into the phase of like, we gotta get back to it on
We
a schedule.
actually had a babysitter every Tuesday night.
That's an excellent idea.
And I know another couple that you also know who have a date night every Thursday night.
I like that.
And we did Tuesday nights, had a babysitter. Even if you go to a pizzeria with a bottle of wine or whatever you're going to do, it doesn't have to be expensive. But I will say that was fantastic when the kids were little.
I mean, I don't have any kids yet.
So you
Carlos
should
does
still-
have a daughter. But I will say we do have date night. It's Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's our date night.
Yeah.
Just based on schedule, we've kind of had to make it happen that
Of
way.
course.
And it is a really good thing because we know every single Saturday night, typically we're going out somewhere.
Well, last night, George said, what are we doing tomorrow night? And I was like, well, today is Tuesday, just so you guys know, I think. And I go, well, it's Tuesday night date night. And he goes, yeah, we don't do that anymore. And I was like, what do you mean we don't do that anymore? You know? So I was like, yeah, we do. I say we go out for dinner. Well, we're not going out for dinner. I'm cooking.
The best part about this whole conversation, guys, is I was sitting here laughing at both of you saying you're in bed at 8:30. And I'm like, that's when I'm going out for
know.
date night.
Oh, I remember
Yes.
it well.
But also, too, I stole one of your recommendations for dinner in Clifton. What was it called?
Agave.
You got to go. It was so great. I
was
loved
on-
it there.
On the master
And
list of
Melissa-
places to
And
try.
Melissa would like it there too.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take you. So
I
we're
can't
gonna
wait to go.
We're going to go and have a meeting with some with some tacos, with some
And a
tacos.
margarita?
And a glass of wine.
Some delicious
Yes.
tequila. Probably
So
there.
that was fun. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to
Appreciate
keep you guys very informed of what's going on with the settlement and how it's going to affect our buyers and sellers in the next couple of months. Once again, that goes into effect in the middle of July. So stay tuned. And thanks so much for joining us on Real Talk. Take care.